Okay, welcome everybody to episode 22 of season 1 of Taking It to the Nub. This is your host, Boston Jimmie, and tonight for the next hour, we're going to be sitting down with co-founder of RoMa Craft Tobac, Skip Martin, and we're going to have some great conversation, have some cigars, and dig into what's new going on with RoMa Craft. Let me bring in Skip. Skip, how are you?
How you doing, Jimmie?
I'm doing okay.
Brooklyn
Had a
Jimmie.
rough week. My dog dislocated his hip last Saturday, and we've been dealing with an invalid dog for the last week. And then my wife spiked the fever 2 days ago, and she's isolated from me again. So, I don't know if she's been putting the thermometer in the hot water and telling me that we gotta be isolated.
Yeah, you're getting older, Jimmie. You start talking about health issues straight off the bat.
My health issues. I'm fine. I smoke whiskey, smoke cigars, drink wine.
Next, we'll be talking about weather and the traffic.
Well, yeah. Well, it is raining outside. Speaking of that, but what are you smoking tonight?
I lit up a Baca Pygmy. Actually, I think this is a Bantu. Actually, the Petit Robusto.
Smoking an Aquitaine?
I actually was so I worked all night, so I got home about 10 in the morning. I was smoking this, and then I slept for about 4 or 5 hours, and when I got back out in the truck, I just relit the same cigar.
I've done the same thing. Trust me. It's sometimes it's just staring at you, going, you got to get past that initial, bite that it has, and then it settles in if it's a good cigar. The name Baca. That's funny. We should talk briefly about that. We all know how you came up with this name and what it all means. But I was up visiting my family in Tennessee the other week, and I was hanging out with a cigar friend whose wife is from Kentucky, and she worked they own tobacco in Kentucky, and in Kentucky it's called Baca.
The tobacco's called Baca?
The tobacco is called Baca. That's what they call it. And I said, that's pretty funny. I didn't know if you knew that.
No, I know it means like idiot or something in Japanese, but it's a tribe in Africa. It's a culture in Africa. But we actually have a trademark issue with it. There's an abandoned what do you call vape company that has but the FDA is about to put them out of business, so it'll be freed up pretty soon.
What does that make the trademark go away, or they have to sell you the trademark?
Well, if you can't conduct business, if you can't conduct business, then it's a dead mark. Okay. I mean, we haven't really heard from anybody. It's just really more of the registration process is, we had to appeal it, and the whole thing's we had the same problem with Whiskey Rebellion, which is why we actually trademarked WR 1794, which is really the name of the brand. It's actually a sub brand of Intemperance. So the BAXXI, the ECXVII, the 23, and then the 18 and the 21. But so WR 1794 really fits closer anyway.
Right. So when I was getting ready for this, and you sent me the picture for the badge to the invite, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to pop this up on the screen for a second. I looked at this and I was like, that's interesting. My wife wasn't going to use that picture at first. She goes, man, this guy's just got his head looking down at a phone or whatever, and sitting on a Yeti cooler. And she's like a real graphic artist. And says, I really should use a better picture. I said, no, this is the one he wants to use. And I kind of like it because I'm staring at it and I'm saying, what is Skip? What are you doing there? Where is that picture taken?
That was at the trade show.
Thinking about?
That was a trade show in New Orleans. It was at our happy hour that after the, every day we had a thing on our balcony on Bourbon Street. But that was actually right after I got out of the hospital. That's why I look so svelte, I think I'd lost 60 pounds in the hospital. Plus, it was hot as fuck.
I was
So
gonna say,
I was sweating my balls off out.
yeah, so a while back.
I mean,
That was
it's hot. It's hot right now. That was humid, right?
And you're staring at a bottle. What were you drinking? You remember?
I don't remember. Some beer.
You were holding a bottle.
Somebody had handed me a beer.
So yes, I thought it was a pretty cool photo. I like that photo. I think it's and it should be like someone, guys like us that put on some weight, go back and look at some old pictures of ourselves and go, yeah, I actually did fit in those pants at one time.
Well, this was only, I guess, 4 years ago.
4 years, when might be 5 years ago. I'm trying to remember. 2015 was.
Yeah, it may have been 15.
Time's flying.
So yeah, I don't take a lot of selfies. Some of these guys, their selfie game is super strong.
Yeah, I know that. I don't either. I'll show the cigar. I'll take photo ops with the cigars, like the one I posted today. That was I went and picked some more of your craft up over at Executive Cigar Lounge, and I figured, let me just stay there for a moment. They got a lot of distancing, and they just got their liquor license.
Right.
And let me get a nice old fashioned, and I'll smoke a cigar. And I took that picture with it. It was like, that's me. That's what I like to do. Nobody needs to see this face anymore, especially the way it's looking.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was going to comment. If this was the '80s, I'd bring you in for questioning on some IRA activities or something. You look like the guy who shows up to the bleachers in the outfield 2 hours before the game with a newspaper and
Well, I'm going for the Jerry Garcia look. All right.
Ah, okay.
So my hair by December will be down here because I don't travel anywhere right now for my business. Right. I'm not doing anything traveling for Stogie Press. I do this, and this is just becoming the look right now. And then what's going to happen is once this is all over with, it's all going to get shaved off, and everybody's going to be like, what? Wife can't stand it. She says it's a hot mess. I said, hey, you know what? You got to live with it for a while.
I can't do it. I mean, not that I can grow a lot of facial hair anyway, but it grows out pretty fast. It just doesn't grow long. It just turns in on itself and starts,
gets like Brillo.
Itching my face. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets like Brillo. I got to keep brushing it out right now. It's the only way it works. And even then, it's still very, very rough. You got to condition it and all of that, and it takes a little longer in the in the shower when you got, besides washing your hair. When you have nothing, it's just like boom, done. Right? This is a mess. So. Let's talk a little bit about some new things that are just going on, because we had a really good conversation 2 years ago at the show, and a lot of people, if you haven't seen that's out on the Stogie Press YouTube channel. I don't want to go re-dive into the same old stuff, but let's talk about this Weasel Fest that you had to cancel. This is going to be going to be your first Weasel Fest. What was the whole thing going behind that?
Well, we had first couple of years we were here in business in Austin. We had an annual thing that we called it Cro-Magnon Culture Weekend, and we had a bunch of people, 8 or 10 or 15 people that would come up, and we'd go eat barbecue, and we'd shoot trap and skeet and smoke and go eat Tex-Mex and barbecue, whatever. And then we got so busy and we're traveling so much, we really don't have time to plan it. But we had decided this year that we weren't going to do our after party at the trade show. And that instead, since it was our 10th anniversary, we were just going to do an event here at the office. And then when they canceled the trade show, it was like, hey, this turns out to be even a better deal. And I think, our budget for it is somewhere around, our budget was around 150. I think we were already up to it about $220,000. So the way it works is the tickets for 400 people, it was going to be, something like, $700-800 a ticket that we were spending, and the tickets only cost about $250. So the difference we were going to make up, with this this special commemorative box that we had of the Grand Perfectos, and we were going to sell 1,000 boxes of those at at $100 a piece or something, make up about 100,000 of the difference, and then they just kind of mark the rest of it off. But we had some really big name bands and great food and a lot of spirits and beer people lined up. It was going to be a great experience. But and we were still going to go ahead with it, but because it's outside here, outside of our office. So, outside we figured it'd be a little bit safer. People could distance, the music you can hear from anywhere, the food you can kind of get on your own. But the city of Austin and the Travis County here, they wouldn't permit it. So because they wouldn't give us a permit, it's just a non-starter. So we originally scheduled it for Memorial Day weekend of this year in May, and then we rescheduled it to 6 months later or 4 months later to Labor Day, thinking, oh, by Labor Day this thing's going to be all over with. So now we've pushed it out to next May. We'd sold about 250 to 300 tickets. Some of those we gave away, so it's somewhere in there. We had about 350 or so people total scheduled to come. A lot of them from outside of the area. And then when we had to push it, we gave people the option, hey, we'll give you a partial refund, because we had some non-refundable deposits and other things. Some work that Red Velvet had done from us, $40,000 to $50,000 that we had to cover either way. So we said, hey, you can either get a partial refund, and we'd already sent out a bunch of the Weasel packs, right? People had already started getting the T-shirts and the cups and the posters and stuff. So you can get your money back, or you can exchange your ticket for 2 of these boxes of cigars, or you can just push your ticket to next year. And about 185 or so, more than half, just said, look, I'll just come next year, so and then probably another 30-40% said, give me the boxes of cigars and I'll buy a ticket next year. And then we only had like 18 or 19 of the 300 or so that wanted a refund. So we're still kind of set for next year. All of the people we had lined up, like the musicians and the vendors, they already agreed to move it to that date. So hopefully hopefully this thing kind of, it's all going to end on.
It all goes away on November 4th.
Right. So hopefully next May is we're in good shape.
So you're going to have hopefully a Weasel Fest in May, and you're doing PCA next year if they have it.
I can't see us
having a double skip party.
I can't see us not coming to the trade show, but to be honest with you, man, I think we've talked this subject to death, but I hope they take this time. I would have hoped that they would take this time to kind of really reevaluate and reinvent the entire trade show. TPE, we had a little presence, a little 10 by 20 booth, and with a couple of couches and a table and chairs. We'll probably do something very similar again this year, and then PCA will probably do the same thing. Really the trade show for us isn't as much about selling as it is about us having a chance to meet with retailers that we don't see throughout the year.
It's the relationships.
Right. So really it's about sitting down and talking more than the orders. The thing for us is when we sell about 1 million cigars a year, 1.2 million a year. And if you look at our imported cigar numbers and our sales numbers, they're almost exactly the same every single year for the last 3 years. There's seasonal things. There's things like Cro-Magnon's delayed, or whatever. We have a special release like Craft that throws the number off of the seasonality. But over the course of the year, it's been at 1 million, 1.1 million. We send about 150,000 or so cigars over to Germany. So for us, the trade show, we generally sell about 25% of our annual production. So what happens is we'll show up in July or August at the trade show. We'll have a little bit of a back order we carry constantly, and then basically we'll take orders that carry us through Q3 and part of Q4. So, this year our revenue is right on track. We had a kind of a slow May. May was rough for us. I don't know if the demand softened, but we just weren't working as much in May because we had guys at home, and then July was our biggest month in 10 years. So, and then when you take out the travel expenses, the event costs, things like IPCPR, when you take all those costs out of it, this has been our most profitable year in 10 years, and we're generally very, very profitable. So,
There you go.
we still have $300,000-$400,000. We still have 2-3 months worth of back order constantly.
That was a question that just came up from Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
One of our viewers wanted to know, he says, Skip, how's the pipeline looking for the Neanderthals? I'm down to my last 3 boxes of HOXDs.
Yeah, so Neanderthal is one of those things that we make all the time. So Cro-Magnon, we get the tobacco. Like this year, we got about 4,500. Actually, we got about 7,500 pounds this year, but 3,000 of that is for next year. So we made about 300,000-400,000 Cro-Magnons. But what happens is those get made in September, October, November, and then they kind of sell out, March, April, May, or March, April. So we age those for about 4 months after we make them. And then the back orders, we start taking back orders on them in January, February, and then they're all sold by the time they get here. Connecticut, we kind of make throughout the year based on demand. Out of Padaca, we make throughout the years based on demand. Same with Aquitaine. Every now and then, we'll kind of get upside down on a size or something, a couple of weeks behind. But, like Neanderthal, we make 25,000 cigars a week. Neanderthal, we probably make 20. So we probably make about 4,500, 5,000 on average a week of Neanderthal. And it's just, it's for the whole year, it's been, 1 or 2 shipments back ordered, meaning if you order it today, you'll get it in 2 shipments, which we have a shipment come up every 10 or 15 days.
So you're getting cigars right now in Nicaragua? Are you fortunate to have that happen? I thought they were not shipping.
Yeah. No, we haven't had any interruptions.
They're coming in by plane or boat?
We always do air freight. Yeah, so they'll leave. Yeah. Like we just had a shipment leave on. So what happens is we get it ready we invoice it on Wednesday or so, Thursday. The Nicaraguan government comes and checks the shipment, certifies it. They do a whole thing basically to get, to make money. And then that delays it a day. And then it goes to Managua early in the morning on Friday. It's usually in Miami by Saturday or Sunday night. And then it's here in Austin by Tuesday or Wednesday. So it generally takes less than a week to get from door to door. But to Ed's question, the Neanderthal, so we did these virtual trade shows through the month of June.
I was going to get into that. So go ahead.
June and July. And we had a lot of demand. So our June and July orders, just like it would have been at the trade show, people ordered Neanderthal out through, I think if you ordered it today, you would probably expect to get it sometime in December or January. So, so there's a steady stream of it. Every 10 or 15 days it comes in. We get, 65, 70,000 cigars every 10 days or 15 days. And then what happens is we basically 80% of it's already on an order from last week or 2 weeks ago or a month ago. And I know, Saka talks a lot about not wanting to have back orders. What I don't like,
came out with that announcement this week. That's part of the news I was going to get into. But yeah, he announced he's doing a moratorium on putting new retail accounts because he doesn't. He says he's gonna, he's not going to sacrifice quality for quantity.
Well, the factories that make his cigars don't really have a capacity issue. I don't think. I think it's more of an issue of you plan to make so many cigars. And if the consumption rate is up, which right now it is, especially with the big five, normally the big five for us is only about 10 to 11% of our total production. So we generally sell less than 120,000 cigars a year to famous CI, JR, those big five, Atlantic. But this year, there's been a shift, primarily because there's been a shift in the demand from consumers, right? So a guy who normally goes into a shop in, Dayton, Ohio to get, a box or, a handful of RoMas, now that guy's buying from, JR or from Famous, because the shop has been closed, right? So that's shifted a little bit, but those big five guys have always been able to sell everything we could send to them. Most of the time it says sold out on their page, and when they get a shipment, it's gone within 2 or 3 days from their page. So generally they've been able to increase their inventory a little bit, because they know when it gets back to kind of normal, we go back to shipping them, what we can. We limit their orders, right, to less than 5 or 10 of any SKU. So to Ed's question, Neanderthals, kind of no different. Two guys where Ed works, actually, we allow them to do a lot more Neanderthal than most accounts. But in terms of the moratorium on accounts, we've been at 250, 300 accounts for 7 years. So there's always accounts that drop off. Now there's accounts that are actually kind of going out of business. So those will open up slots. We have a waiting list. We don't really do first come, first serve. We kind of prioritize the waiting list. What our focus generally is when we open an account, we don't like it to close, right? So, it's kind of the cigar business in general, what they'll do is they'll just write an order to any account who wants one. Then they play games on the shipping side, and they ship to their important accounts first, and they ship anything that's left over to the kind of second tier accounts. What we do is we always ship orders first come, first serve. So if you put an order in on March 2nd, and someone else puts an order on March 3rd, no matter who they are, the March 2nd order gets filled first, right? So, but all of our accounts are first tier accounts, and what we don't like is we don't like opening an account and then getting a $2,500, $3,000 order, getting on the shelf, and then 2-3 months from now you don't hear from them again. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's really important for us to make sure we match with the accounts correctly, and that we also teach them how to order, because ordering from us is a little bit different than ordering from, say, General Cigar, right? A lot of companies, you try to order from them, the stuff you really want is a lot of it is sold out, and they try to push kind of the second level stuff on you. Well, we don't really have any second level SKUs. All of our SKUs sell. We have a set production that we make every year based on kind of the model, the consumption model we have in the factory, and then we sell all of it. So
what would you say the number one line is that you sell?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where if I made 5 times as many, I could probably sell 1 million Cro-Magnons a year if I could buy the tobacco to make them, right? So I think Cro-Magnon, it's sold long before we make it. Like we don't allow, like if somebody in October wants Cro-Magnon, we don't take their order for Cro-Magnon generally. We will wait until we know that it's produced and we know how many boxes of each size we have produced, and then we'll start taking orders so that we don't oversell it, right?
So the Cro-Magnon is the most demanded one?
I mean, the highest volume cigar we have is single SKU is the Neanderthal HN. And then the Cro-Magnon Cranium, and then the Intemperance Breach of the Peace actually is our third one. So, like I said, if I made all 6x60 Cro-Magnons, I could sell 1 million a year, right? So it's really, like the Mandible sells a little bit slower. The Aquitaine Mandible sells a little bit slower. Some of the Connecticut stuff sells a little slower. Whiskey Rebellion sells, as fast. I mean, it all sells as fast as we can make it. So it's hard to say. I kind of decide which one's the most popular by deciding which one I make the most of.
Right.
And really,
Now,
there's more margin in a Neanderthal, a big Neanderthal, than there is in a small Connecticut, right? Which is why I don't use my capacity to make a lot of small Connecticut's.
so now when you say take like the Cro-Magnon, for instance, if you go back in time and you think across each vintage year that you've produced that, what year would you say was the best Cro-Magnon?
Man, honestly, I think it's been really consistent the whole time. The way that we make them, the kind of tobacco that we buy, and the way we kind of manage the fillers year to year, they're all basically. You could smoke a mandible we made in 2011, and you probably could tell it has a little more age on it, but it's exactly the same as a mandible we make today. So, um, you know, a lot of times I have a box, a 35 count box, one of our first boxes we ever made. And a lot of times we'll pull those out here at the office and smoke it right next to a brand new, 4-month-old Cro-Magnon, and they're very similar.
So you've been able to manage the leaf, the crops are pretty consistent in the leaf that you're getting from crops year to year?
No, the leaf is actually really inconsistent. So what happens is if you can only find so much, there's been years where we only made 150,000 Cro-Magnons, right, or less, because there's just some years where the wrapper's not there, and then there's been times where we cut back in production in general because, say, the Esteli Ligero we use in a lot of things is changed a little bit. But then there's also variations like year to year where Condega this year Viso smokes like a Ligero, and next year it smokes like a Viso, right? So you kind of constantly have to also kind of micro adjust the blends based on the tobaccos that you're working with. So the goal is to change it constantly so that it stays the same.
Right, right. So you get, you take a company like Fuente, and I think Carlito's watching right now. Like Fuente, over these years, have been able to produce consistent products. I love the short story, right? I've always loved that cigar, for instance. And that cigar is the same cigar today that it was 15 years ago, right? That profile is consistent, right?
Yeah, I think my taste have changed, but yeah, I would say that cigar's, consistency is really important. But sometimes a lot of the ways that they maintain consistency is use lower priming tobaccos are a lot easier to kind of nail down once you get your crop cycles, especially if you're using your own tobaccos. Lower priming stuff is a little bit easier to use, or depending on how you process the tobacco. If you use a lot of really fast kind of use the Mojada, the Batoon, if you use different processes in the tobacco, sometimes it's easier to just homogenize the tobacco in the fermentation process, so every year it tastes the same. But at the end of the day, there's a set of lips for everything, every other kind of cigar. So the thing is like if you have a guy that smokes it on a regular basis, as soon as he opens the box, he expects a certain smell. He expects a certain, when he lights it, he expects a certain taste. And if it's different, and it's a guy who smokes it on a regular basis, then he's going to know. So, for me, I've just gotten to the point. I mean, I smoke so many cigars in the day also that a lot of cigars to me are very, they're pleasant, but they're not necessarily super interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, but there are some cigars that I've smoked for 20 plus years that have been really consistent. So if I'm having some kind of like, variance in my ability to taste, or something tastes off that it shouldn't taste the way it's tasting, I'll go back to one of those constants just to kind of recalibrate my palate and make sure that it's that it's
That's
me.
not something you ate. You could have been, like a lot of people
Right.
that you could have, like, not even eating. You could just be having a stressful day, and the hormones and the acids and things in your mouth can accelerate and cause an effect on the taste of cigars. Just a bad day can cause a cigar not to taste the right way for you.
Right. I've smoked so much, kind of just individual tobaccos now that it's kind of like when you're buying groceries. You can pick up a tomato or an avocado or whatever, and you can touch it, feel it, look at it, smell it. You can kind of know 85%, 90% sure before you ever even taste it. So the majority of how you're recognizing whether it's correct is based on feel, smell, um, you know how it looks is a huge part of it. And you can kind of look at it and go, the texture's off on this, so it's not gonna be as full flavored. um, the smell has a little bit of a burn to it, so this isn't ready. It needs to be fermented longer. um, or it needs to be stored longer to off gas more, because it hasn't completely dried out yet or whatever. And then you can tell, um, a lot of times you have a really good sense of what the issue is going to be, if there is one, before you even light it. And in the same way, you can look at tobacco and you can say, man, it looks great, the texture is exactly right, the smell is perfect, it's sweet, or it's bready, or it's earthy, or it's dirt. It's what it's supposed to be. And then when you light it, you go, yeah, I knew this was going to be exactly this. So that you get to that point. Sometimes, a lot of times, the issues with a flavor being off, almost always for us, because we manage the material really closely. For us, it's almost always humidity. So it has to do with how the ambient humidity is, or what's going on in a room. Um, we don't humidify our anything in our factory, and we don't use air conditioning in our factory. So air conditioning, actually eliminates a lot of these problems, because it sucks the humidity out of the cigars a lot faster. But for us, we use it, I don't think there's a word for it, but if you walked into our aging room, it's really strong tobacco smell, because there's off gassing that happens even after you make it. It's not ammonia, but it's a really strong concentrated tobacco smell. And
Very pungent.
yeah, and being in that environment, um, it's kind of like a smoking barbecue. You can just tell whether the environment is right, before you even look at the meat, right? It just hits you a certain way, and either has too much smoke or not enough smoke, or it has too much heat or not enough heat. um, you touch it, it doesn't wiggle enough. It's not moist enough, right? So you kind of know, when there's some issue going on. Sometimes you have to put an extractor into that room. Sometimes you have to open up the room and let some of that concentrated air out. Um, so there's a lot of managing it is really post production. It's just more about the conditions that the chemical processes are happening.
And you're a stickler for when you deal with the quality of your cigars. If I remember telling me once, you weigh every cigar.
Well, we do
Or
it.
you weigh the
Yeah,
bundle.
most of it's by hand, right? So I mean, um, you are kind of, because when you're picking up thousands and thousands of cigars a day, you the buncher or the roller automatic know this already anyway. So they've eliminated a lot of the issues before you ever touch them. And then when you pick them up, you can generally tell if a cigar is 2 grams heavier than another cigar. And when you're checking them visually after they're rolled, and you're checking them, and they're in the process of kind of the wrappers drying, and you start seeing the imperfections in the color as the water dries off, um, you kind of know what it's supposed to feel like. Obviously there's no soft spots, there's no whatever hard spots, but at the same time, all of our cigars are really dense. They're very heavy for the size. So you can take and this is a good exercise for anybody, I think, is you take a really accurate scale that's accurate down to, like, 1 milligram, We use these little scales that are accurate to 0.001 grams, right? So when you could take a box of cigars, any box of cigars, um, open it up and measure weigh every cigar in the box, there shouldn't really be more than a gram or a 2 gram difference at the most in that box. If you weigh one that's or that feels light and it is actually 2.5 3 grams less, that cigar somewhere in the process as it dried, um, some piece of it gave way, and you'll find a soft spot in it. Or on the other hand, if you find one that's really heavy, 9 times out of 10, when you go to draw on it, it's overfilled, and you're not gonna have a good draw on it. So that kind of cigar, I even find myself, as I select cigars out of my own humidor, if they feel heavier than they should, I'll dry box them for a day or so before I smoke
Yeah,
them.
because the moisture content adds to the weight also.
Yeah, exactly. A cigar at 72, can weigh a gram or two more than a cigar at 65, right? Just because of the moisture content. I mean, a single cellophane, you think a cellophane doesn't really have much weight, but a single cellophane weighs about, for like a Toro size, a cellophane will weigh, point 0.8, point 0.9 grams, 842 milligrams to 925 milligrams, right? So if you think about how light a single cellophane is, that's 1 gram, about, right? It's a little bit less than a
Right.
gram.
Exactly.
So if your cigar is off by the weight of two cellophanes, then it's either got its retention moisture is too high, or it's overfilled. We don't really have an issue with twisted bunches or anything like that causes draw issues. For us, a cigar really only is going to be an issue for us if it's too heavy, if it's overfilled. And
So,
sometimes what happens when they're bunching, they just get over excited in putting the tobacco back in to make it not have a soft spot, that they just end up overfilling it.
so as a brand owner, and then congratulations, you're like 10 years now, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal. Um, your your experience with your own cigars, when you talk about like moisture or humidity, where would you say that like take a Neanderthal, maybe they vary, like just take a Neanderthal, what would you say is the optimum moisture content to smoke the Neanderthal in your expectation?
I mean, I like most of my cigars drier to smoke. I mean, you always say you want to make your cigars in a humid environment. You want to store them in a very humid environment, and then you want to smoke them dry. But for example, you take one like our Connecticut. If you store our Connecticut in a dry environment, it'll be damaged as soon as you cut it, just because it's a very fragile wrapper. Um, and then if you smoke one of our heavier cigars like Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, if you smoke those cigars, straight out of storage, having them in high humidity is good in the sense that it allows the oils to kind of stay in the cigar, and it doesn't really off gas as much. But as soon as you dry it out, what happens is it loses some of the kind of the essence of it, right? It's like a 7-year-old bottle of cheap cologne. It's just lost whatever made it good, and now you're smelling is kind of the acrid. It doesn't smoke as good. So in general, like in Nicaragua, I don't really keep my cigars in humidity. I end up having to dry them to smoke them because the ambient humidity is so high. But the main thing about cigars is you don't want them to go through really rapid, drastic changes in temperature, and you don't want to. If you take a really dry cigar, depending on the type of tobacco, like Arapaca is very hygroscopic, it'll absorb humidity really fast. But it'll only absorb it in the wrapper, right? So what'll happen, because our fillers are very dense. So what'll happen is you take a really dry Arapaca out of storage, and you set it on a table in an ambient kind of high humidity environment. what'll happen is the wrapper immediately will become humidified, and then it doesn't smoke necessarily the right way. So you don't want to take an Arapiraca from a 75% environment or 80% environment and put it into smoke it in Las Vegas, for example, and you don't want to take it from Las Vegas and then smoke it on a fishing trip, right? Because that big change throws off the balance between the wrapper and the filler, and you'll start having burn issues and other things. I mean, anytime anyone says, "Hey, I have this burn issue," it's almost 95% of the time it's a humidity problem or how they lit it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't use a hygrometer. I don't use a hygrometer in Nicaragua, and I don't use a hygrometer here. Our humidifiers run off of a hygrometer, but I don't really ever look at the humidity. I depend on smell and the feel, and
Right.
when you open the cabinet for your cigars, whether it's dry or not.
Yeah, you got that sweet smell, you're happy.
Right. So when a lot of times
right.
people say, "What kind of hygrometer should I use?" It's like, don't use one. Just keep, if you have a cabinet, for example, keep your lighter kind of wrapper cigars down closer to the humidity and keep the heavier cigars, further away. Every humidor, like a walk-in humidor at a retailer, has a soft spot. A lot of times when a retailer is telling us, "Hey man, these things have just been burning. They're really smoky. They burn slow. They go out." It's like, well, how close do you have them to where your humidity comes out of the machine? So if your machine's right here and you got a center island and the humidity is blowing right onto our cigars, that's not exactly where you don't want to put them, right? You want to put them further away from the humidity source.
Sure.
So, people who are looking for our cigars will find them. I just want them to be in a place where they're, and everybody will say, "Well, my humidity is perfect," and whatever, right?
So we a question, kind of a question coming in, or a statement. Tyler Jeffrey noted earlier, he is stoked for the new Baca size, Jangi, and the tarred and feathered.
Yeah, the tarred and feathered is the new box press Whiskey Rebellion.
Okay.
The 5x56.
What is that coming?
That's probably around November, like for Black Friday. Baca is coming in right now, so it'll be here. It'll be kind of shipping to stores on Tuesday and Wednesday.
So that's the Jangi?
Yeah, the anthropology size, the Grand Corona.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting because the Coronas are becoming popular again. I've noticed. See a lot of people starting to push into, when they're doing line extensions and they're filling things out. Obviously, they had their basic portfolio, but now Coronas are showing up, and people are liking Coronas. They may not. Some people don't like Lanceros because it's just the look of it, but the Corona is actually kind of like a mini Lancero and has that great wrapper flavor to it that you're going to get out of it.
Well, not very many people make real Coronas, like 5 1/4 to 5 3/4, 40, 42 ish. Most of the time, what you see now is kind of the fatter Coronas, like 46, 48.
Yeah, it's getting close to a Robusto.
Yeah, just a little bit longer,
Right.
I mean, in the Neanderthal, we make a 5 1/4 by 50 and a 5 3/4 by 46. And you would think they would be very similar, but they're not really not. They smoke very different. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite sizes. The size I smoke more than anything is probably 4 by 46, just because, I can get through it in 45 minutes or so, and onto something different. It's a rare situation where I'll sit down and smoke something that's, even if I have a Toro, like a cranium, I'll usually cut an inch or two off the end of it before I even light it, so that it's a shorter cigar.
Huh. Gary Smith is asking, do you make any perfectos?
Yeah, we make short perfectos in every line almost.
Just had one of those.
Like the Envy, the Faith, the Mode 5. And then this new thing we have is the Grand Perfecto. We've been making a Grand Perfecto for probably 7 or 8 years, just for us to smoke. But This is the first time we've actually had one in every blend. And I'm not sure what, the Catador is going to be for Weasel Fest. And, this time I'm thinking maybe Grand Coronas, but, either way, yeah, we do make Perfectos.
So the boxes you had for Weasel Fest, that cigar was part of that wasn't part of the bag that people got, was it?
No, it was an add-on if you wanted some.
You sold out of those?
We have about a third of them left, and we'll probably hang on to most of those, to kind of sell at the next event. But the thing about Perfectos, if you notice our Perfectos, we don't leave the foot side as a Perfecto. I always cut that off because generally people don't know how to light cigars correctly. So if you give them a little surface area to start with, they have a less of a chance of fucking it up. So I generally will cut, we'll make it 6 by 60, but I'll cut, 3/8 of it off in the factory. So it's kind of ready for you to smoke.
So you're basically giving them about a 3/8 of an inch foot.
Yeah, because for me, whenever I smoke Salamones or Perfectos, I always cut both ends. And so on our Perfectos, I generally just cut the foot end for you.
That's nice of you.
But you'll notice on all of our Perfectos, the foot is flat. The pointy part's already been cut off.
Sure, I do. That's right. I did notice that. So Mo from Frontline Cigars, Steve is his name, right? So I don't know if you know Steve from up in Chicagoland. He's starting out on RoMa Craft, not knowing much about the cigars. Which one would you recommend? Size and strength does not matter.
I mean, like I said before, and then most people who smoke our cigars regularly will tell you they're all good. They just have different times of the day or different situations.
You trying to be a politician now? Answer the question.
No, I do. I smoke everything. My favorite blend of all of them, that's to me kind of like the middle ground of everything, is the Apodaca, the Intemperance Apodaca.
Right,
but that's a very unique flavor, right? The kind of most approachable one that if you like stronger cigars, but you like them, to be not too in your face, harsh, the Aquitaine is always a good one to start with. But I have favorites in every line. I have like in the broadleaf, I like the bigger ring gauges. In the Aquitaine, I like the smaller ring gauges. In the Apodaca, I like the shorter cigars. In the Connecticut, I like the smaller cigars. I like all of our box presses are really good. Generally what I think is always really good is to get, and we do this across our lines where like we have a 4x46 in every line. We have some form of a petite robusto in every line. We have a kind of a nub kind of size in most of the lines. And then we have a larger kind of Toro or Bellicoso in all the lines. So what I think is always really good is if you try to get if you like 4x46s, get that in all the lines, and then you can see, as long as you're smoking the same size blend to blend, you can see kind of how the which one you kind of hits you the best.
So now let me ask you, just a production question.
But that's why we do the Catadors, so that you can kind of taste all the blends in the same size, right?
Right, exactly. Let me ask you a production question. So here, smoking the Aquitaine, which is smoking very nice. So on this particular cigar, you got the small outer band. You have a inner band that the outer band wraps around. The outer band comes off easy. This does not.
Well, the reason why we don't use, if you smoke our cigars, you'll never see the band stuck to the cigar.
Right.
Like a lot of line, Avo's famous for that. For years, like every third Avo, the band, when you took it off, a piece of tobacco came with it, right? But we use this really porous what they call wine label paper, and so it actually doesn't stick very well initially. It's like some of the paper has kind of got that that coating on it. Those things stick really well immediately. So you put the label on, boom, it's stuck. It's not going to come undone. But for us, you actually have to hold your finger on the label. So if you watch in our factory and packaging, you'll see them put the white label on, then they'll hold their thumb there for a few seconds while they're getting the other label, probably 5 or 6 seconds for every cigar. And then what happens is once it sets, the glue kind of goes into the pores of the paper, and then it just doesn't peel like a sticker.
Right.
It's actually welded together, right?
Yes.
So you'll hardly. This is how you'll see. When it's easier on a Perfecto, obviously, but basically on a Perfecto you can take it off the small end, or on a Bellicoso, but generally I'll smoke it down to about an inch from the band, and then I'll just slide it over the burning end.
Okay.
But the people who try to kind of collect the flat band, you could probably do it fairly easy once it's off the cigar. But if you try to peel the band off while it's on the cigar, you'll probably fuck up the cigar. When they put bands on, the cigars are a little bit humid, so they're a little more spongy. And then what happens is you squeeze the cigar a little bit, so it's like like when you put your jeans on after your quarantine 15, you're kind of sucking everything in. You button it up. If you're gonna undo it, you got to suck it all in again to undo it, right? So, that's the way it kind of is with the cigars. But generally, the heated end of the cigar is drier and smaller by like a 1 or 2 ring gauge, is a 32nd of an inch or whatever. And so what'll happen is if you slide it over the burning end, it's easy to get off. But for some reason, people are conditioned to try to peel it off. And
well, they are, because they like to collect them, because they want to build things. I know, like when I did this little Boston Jimmie private stock thing I was doing, and I'm not getting any right now because of the issues in Honduras, but the first batch I got in from my birthday party, I got the naked sticks, and I had ordered bands, and the bands came in late, so I had to put the bands on myself. So I had to learn the process of making the vegetable glue, the pectin, and did all of that. And I started putting the bands on, and the first few were like, man, this is a tedious pain in the ass process. But then I got used to it, right? And curious, how many cigars are banded per hour by a bander? Because now that I know what it takes to put it on, because how fast do they complete that process? How many do they do in an hour?
Well, where in our packaging room, we have 6 ladies that work in there. So it's one lady for every, there's one packaging lady for every 4, for every 2 pairs. So if you have a buncher and a roller, you have one packaging lady. Okay. And so if they're making 25,000 cigars this week, the packaging ladies can package 25,000 cigars from 4 months ago, right? Or 3 months ago. So,
but they're banding, cellophaning, and putting in the box.
Yeah, in our place, they do. Some places there'll be just someone who's doing the bands. There'll be someone who's doing the cellophane, and then there'll be someone who's doing the box, and then someone who's doing all the stickers and everything on the box. At our place, the lady will pick, a sorted bundle, and she'll do the labels, she'll do the cellophane, she'll put it in the box or the bundle, and then she'll put the stickers on. So she does the whole package. So, it's hard to say. They do about, 800 to 1,000 a day total, but how much of that is putting the actual labels on is probably, 25% of the process. So if they were just doing labels, they could probably do 3,000 a day. But like, for example, some of our cigars have 1 label and some of our cigars have 2 labels. And if it has 2 labels, it takes twice as long, right?
Right.
So it varies.
So you've been watching any sports lately?
Not really, man. I'm kind of over pro. I'm more of a college football guy.
And I can see much of that.
And I like playoffs. So like I'll watch NBA playoffs. I'll watch, you know,
Are you watching the NBA right now?
no, no.
Oh, you got. I'm not a big basketball guy, but I was flipping through the channels the other day and I caught the NBA. They had the Magic was playing, so they're all in the same arena. They play in the
Right.
same.
The bubble.
And when you watch the baseball games, there are certain stadiums that have the cardboard cutouts
Right.
in the stands and some that don't. The NBA, there's actually like LED screens, right? They're images of people with the hats that they change them for the fan, for whatever fan base it's supposed to be in the stands, right?
Yeah.
Kind of animated people doing this. I mean, they spent a lot of money to build a stand it's weird actually, because it's, it's kind of like looking at me like this and like all of a sudden,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you make another basket, you get another one of these. They try to have a good time with it. Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing the baseball thing.
Yeah, I played baseball for a long time. I kind of got a little bit, I used to play this thing called Stratomatic when I was a kid, where you would take the baseball cards, like the way you play Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering or whatever. So, the baseball card, you'd pick your lineup and then you'd actually play a game, and then you'd have odds of whether you were going to connect, what your odds were to get a single or a double or a triple, what your odds were to get
was there a dice involved?
Yeah, there was a little it was like a little slide rule and a dice. So the way you would look at the stats on the back of the card, and you would dial in the variables for each player, and then you'd play the game. So I was really into it. I mean, I knew all the statistics. I knew this guy hits to the right, this guy hits to the left. I knew all that. And then, when the first strike happened, I was a little disenfranchised. When the second strike happened, I was kind of checked out. I've been kind of a Cubs fan for a long time. And then, I actually went to the World Series Game 5 in Chicago. And, I was kind of excited about it again that season. But, I think this is true in all the sports that have seasons that are really long, is the coaches will make, just based on their record and standing, they'll make decisions, to try harder or not, or not give a shit. They'll throw, they'll know they're going to lose the game and they don't care because they're focused on the standings. They're not focused on the game. Right. But that's why I like the playoffs in those leagues, because every game matters. Right.
Yeah. But the players are focused on their stats.
A lot of times, which is,
right?
And
sometimes that's in conflict, like you said, to the management that says, hey, you know what, we're going to end this game, we're going to get out of here because, we're losing, 16-4. Come on, just try your best, but, it ain't happening. You guys
right.
ain't today. Go back, we'll regroup and deal with tomorrow. But this year, with 162 games, that's a little easier. Right now, when you look at where we're at with 60 games in a season, and all in your division with some interleague games, in that there's no room, there's no wiggle room. There's none of these, like, I'm going to get the burst. I'm going to get that July burst or that August burst, right? Or I'm going to get that slump. You can't count on any of that. I mean, at the end, somebody's getting a trophy. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's the last team standing. I don't know.
I don't even know if they individually, I mean, of course they all want to win, but I don't know if individually. I mean, there's some guys, you're on a team, you're not going to win, right?
Yeah, it's just practice.
You're not going to be in the playoffs. So those guys are just focused on not getting hurt, and maybe getting their stats up so they can trade to somewhere else. Or it ain't like it used to be, man. It used to be like your team guys were your team guys, and they didn't really move team to team very much. And if you like the Royals, you had a consistent team. If you liked the Padres, you had Steve Garvey.
They were there the whole time. They didn't
I was thinking George Brett. If you liked the I kind of watched the Rangers and the Cubs and the Texas Rangers. It was, as soon as you liked a guy, you knew he was gonna. It was like watching a minor league team, because as soon as
Yeah.
the guy got good, you knew he was going somewhere else. So.
Well, even now, what they've done too in this season, which I found interesting, is I mean, I'm not a big fan of the designated hitter. I always felt that the pitcher should bat, and even though I'm an American League fan, I just never liked that rule. And they doubled down in this shortened season where both sides, National and American League, have a designated hitter, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I like the DH rule. I like the DH rule. I think I've thought for a long time that it should be should be, and also the NFL change where they have the overtime rule changes. I think those are good as well.
Now here's a question. You're baseball. You played baseball. You had fun in baseball. I was watching the Red Sox and the Yankees play the other day. And, okay, so I understand. I thought I understood a balk, right? I thought I understood a balk. So the typical balk, pitcher's on the mound, does his thing, makes that wrong turn, and it's a balk, right?
Well, it's like one of those rules that's changed over the years.
Well, here's the scenario.
Yeah.
Here's the scenario.
The rules I understand it is if you are on the rubber and you make a furtive movement towards the pitching motion towards home plate, and your foot comes off the rubber, then and you don't throw it to home plate, then it's a balk.
Right. Okay, exactly. Now, here's the scenario that happened the other night. The first baseman was playing deep. So he wasn't on the base. He was
right.
Deep.
He was on the foul line?
No, he was by the grass.
Okay.
He was playing a deep first base because they're based on the hitter, right?
Right.
Pitcher turns to throw the ball to pick off the guy at first, but there's nobody there to catch the ball. He didn't throw the ball. That's a balk.
That's not a balk.
Yes, it's a balk, and it's a different category of a balk.
You can fake throw. You can check a runner.
If there's nobody there to catch the ball, they explain this.
Oh.
There's nobody there to catch the ball. The baseman now a balk, the batter moves and everybody moves, right?
Well, that may be the rule now. And
the runner gets to take second base.
Yeah, I think that's a bullshit.
So if he threw the ball,
because the whole idea of a balk is you've tricked the runner thinking you're going to throw it to home plate.
Exactly.
It's never been a balk if you trick them and you don't try to throw them out.
Yeah. Now that went to second base and screwed everything up. It's like okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Nope, never in my life did I ever see that call made. So you learn something new every day. Whatever you do.
Yeah.
By the way, Felicia Daniel asked a question. She wants to know, will there be any other Lanceros other than the Neanderthal?
Yeah, we make a Cro-Magnon Lancero and an Aquitaine Lancero. So we make those. We make about 150 boxes a year of each, and they go to whoever orders them.
So there's a certain market, obviously, where they can sell those.
All of our 10 and 12 count limited edition boxes, we make them once every year. That we never have a hard time selling those. Right. But sometimes it'll go to a store and the store wants them, but they don't really know what to do with them, so they just sit there forever. So a lot of times, if you go into a RoMa retailer, you say, "Hey, do you have any of those 10 count boxes of Cro-Magnon or Aquitaine?" They'll have Salomones or box press, or they'll have a bunch of different ones.
So other than the two that we just talked about, the Baca and the new Intemperance, is there anything else new this year, or is that it?
Well, we don't have any, so we have the Grand Perfectos. We had Craft 2020 earlier in the year. Okay. The Corona Craft. We've got we haven't really made anything new this year other than that. But one of the interesting things about this new ruling from the FDA
Yeah,
for
I'm gonna ask that question. So yeah, you just segue
yes,
to it.
so one of the interpretations, and it's just a proposal right now, but one of the interpretations is that we may be able to file deferment on cigars that weren't even on the market in August. So we may be able to get kind of like a marketing approval, or at least a deferment on marketing. So it depends on how it comes down, but we're going to submit our deferral to include all of our Germany Neanderthals, our Wonderlust, our Weaselitos. So there we may be able at some point to be able to sell those in the States.
Does your
Contrary.
lawyer have any rules on this yet? Because I haven't heard any rules. They announced that they were considering this, but
Yeah, no, they had a 3-page document in their submission of this is what we want to do. We want to defer, and here's all the requirements. But the whole thing's the fucking wild, wild west.
it's a nut. It's a.
I mean, and essentially they've told us that they're not going to enforce it. So people out there are kind of just doing whatever they want to do.
Exactly. You're gonna have small guys that can't afford legal fees, that are just gonna fly under the radar until they can't. Right? You got medium and large size guys that are doing the due diligence, do all the work. You're spending lots of money on legal fees. And then at the end, if they don't do anything about it, or even better for the industry, they finally wake up, or Judge Metter comes off and says, hey, you know what? I'm throwing this whole thing out. You guys are just, you're killing this industry, and you have no rhyme or reason on why you're doing it. So you get an exemption, right? Think about all the money, all the legal fees you spent.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If you go back to May of 2016, I had a post as soon as the deeming rule came out that basically said a couple of things, which is, we're going to be under the regulation regime. We're going to have to pay the FDA user fee. What we should do is just collectively approach the FDA and work out some type of regulation light, right? And that way, if it's hand rolled, if it meets all the requirements of a premium cigar, let's define that. Then, we register the product. We certify that it only has water, vegetable gum, and dark air cured tobacco, rolled by hand, with all the variations that come with that. If we, as long, it's kind of like trying to get a beer label approved by the FTC. It's like, it has to have certain requirements, but other than that, we're not going to, as long as you're not marketing it to kids, as long as it doesn't have weird random bullshit in it that we've never seen or heard of before that could change the health impacts. If if it's made this way, small batch with all the variations, then we'll allow you to market it. The problem is that you had all these freedom riders that were gonna storm the regulation castle and burn it down. That was a a quixotic kind of errand from the beginning. It's never going to happen. It was a long shot that we were going to get exemption, but it definitely wasn't possible that you were going to sue the FDA into not regulating you. You know what I mean?
Right.
On the contrary, what we've done, where we've been really effective, is explaining to them what we do and how we do it. And the more that they've tried to nail down how they're going to regulate us, the more they understand our business, the more they realize how hard it is, because it's not a homogenized machine-made product. It's very impossible. It's very hard to try to define, to make a handmade product exactly the same all the time, right?
And thousands of blends and for sizes.
Right.
Have to have paperwork that is going to inundate them. They don't have the staff to deal with that.
And their own studies have determined, look, they're too expensive for young people to really smoke. They're too high in concentration of nicotine. They're going to make people who aren't those kinds of smokers sick. You can't really inhale them unless you're a fucking savage. And young people don't smoke premium cigars. We don't market them to consumers like that. So I think they had just gotten themselves worked into a corner where they said, look, it's not even a priority for us. We're trying to chase down the CBD synthetic oil vape bullshit that's killing people, and cigarettes and all this other bullshit. So, they had already decided that they didn't really know enough or have enough of a priority to regulate it, enforce it. So it was like this prime. It's like right now it's this prime situation where what's happening is they're trying to convince the judge to let them off the hook. And these pediatrician groups and the anti-smoking Nazis and all these, people who want to kind of, the temperance movement, right? The prohibitionists, they want to come in and just destroy our industry. The more we talk about how this will destroy us, the more excited they get, right? So, the problem is, I don't want to get into politics, but Donald Trump's not winning this election unless it's, rigged, right? So you're going to have, Sleepy Joe and phony Kamala Harris or whatever he calls them. That's going to be the next administration. But more importantly, the Senate might flip. So you might have a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, and a Democratic president. And in that environment, people like Dick Durbin and these other cocksuckers who are just on the jihad funded by the anti-smoking Nazis, whatever. Like, I don't know who touched them or, what happened to them in their childhood, but they just want to destroy us. They're nanny staters, the people who make money off of being against us, right? Those people will take advantage of that environment, and it'll swing all the way back to the other direction if we keep pushing this out. So the best case scenario is not keep pushing this out. The best case scenario is give us kind of the rubber stamp substantial equivalent light, get our products a marketing order so it kind of moves the grandfather date to this new date, right? And then later on, if they want to come back and start saying, hey, we want to test them and we want to do this, then they have to go figure out how to do it before they can make us participate. Right. I mean, they have machines that smoke cigars. So there's this whole process where they normalize the tobacco, they normalize the cigars, they weigh them all, they get a set of test subjects that are all the same weight, same humidity, same moisture content, and they put them in this machine, and they try to get this machine to smoke the cigar so they can detect.
You can analyze the smoke.
Yeah, and the problem is the machine can't smoke a cigar. The problem is the cigar goes out. They have to relight it, which fucks up the whole test. They every cigar, even if it's exactly the same weight and normalized, whatever, it burns wonky on its own. When you smoke a cigar, you don't realize it, but you don't take consistent, exact puffs like a machine does. You change, like the shorter the cigar gets, the further out your draws are, the longer they are. Right. The beginning, you're faster puffing and so, and the fact that none of that's even going into your lungs, if you have a well ventilated area, the whole fucking thing is just a joke. And so they couldn't even get one to burn on the machine consistently. So it's like, if you want to make us go through tests, then you got to do a test yourself to set the standards. Good luck with that. Right.
That's it.
So for me, the best scenario would be, if Judge Maida comes back and says, look, I think you guys are fucked up for waiting to the last minute on this deferment process. But basically, I'm going to allow you to do it. But I'm going to tell you, before you put any new rule in or change anything else, you have to complete all your studies, complete all your processes, and give a signal to the industry with a sufficient lead time as to what's going to happen. You can't leave them in limbo for years and years and years, and you can't just change a rule and say, hey, this has to happen next month. Right. So hopefully that's what he'll come back and say is you got to follow your own rules process. And if you follow,
and that's what he seemed to lean to in a statement he made last week, which was positive for the industry. So we'll look forward to that.
Well, what's positive is he's pissed off at the FDA, and he's sick of hearing this case. He's like, I'm finally starting to realize you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. The cigar people have been telling us for 4 years, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. I think I agree with them. That you got, not only do you not know what the fuck you're doing, you don't even want to do it. So,
Right. So that's good. So maybe good comes out of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, we're well past the hour, so I always close out my show a little bit with a little bit of what's new happening on Stogie Press. So let me just quick go over. A couple things on Stogie Press that are new. The first thing that happened was I finally convinced my wife to put a slider down here on the homepage that has the last 16 cigar reviews. So this will scroll. So obviously when a new one comes out, the far right one disappears. So these are the last 16 reviews that we did. So that's new on Stogie Press. These are the latest ones right here that we just reviewed. So we just did the Sindicato Cubico Toro. I kind of like that cigar. This is a very, very, very nice cigar. Reasonably priced. Had really nice ash on it. Really nice burn. Look at that. That's just a magnificent thing. A little bit of an off burn on the cone. So really nice. The only problem that I had with this as far as flavor wise, it's chock full of flavor, but there was some bitterness that came in deep in the second, third and lasted a little longer than I would expect.
So what that is what's happened is your Ligero in the center is burning slower. And then as you get down, what's happened is that it's gone out a little bit. And so when you're getting, it's igniting that in the middle, combusting, irregularly. And then what happens is you get you start getting the tar buildup and the impurities from the smoke that are coming, building up towards the end of the cigar.
Yep. Okay.
So, but that's just a characteristic of having heavy tobacco. If you dried that cigar out to 60, 62 and re-smoked it, you wouldn't have as much in terms of the of some of the nuanced flavors, but you wouldn't have that bitterness.
So it's a trade-off. Still fine cigar. We did review the Blanco 9 Lancero, and this is a cigar that's been around for a long time. Okay, so this is nothing new. This is not a new cigar. But we did do a show with Blanco the other week. I've always liked the Blanco 9 line itself. I felt that this is one of his best lines that he has. And this is now obviously moved over the years from his Los Blancos factory to what he's doing to now Plasencia does these. This one here, again, really nice, decent ash for a Lancero. It was carrying it nice, good ash cone. What really came in here was really the fact that there was the flavors were there, so it's not the flavor problem. I did get some flavors that I don't get always in a cigar. Like I particularly picked up this vanilla note, which I like. So that just kind of added a little lightness to it, and there was definitely some spiciness down to the end. It's medium to full strength cigar. And then the last one, and I was actually kind of disappointed. I smoked 2 of these, all right, over the last month, and they both did the same thing to me. This is I was really looking forward to this cigar. The flavors on the pre-light was just really enticing. Had really nice aromas. Had really interesting. Had a nice array of notes on the cold draw that was really getting me going. And what happened was you could just see in the burn and the ash, it just was just gave me problems. And that happened on both the cigars. So unfortunately, even it is a strong cigar too. So this is not something that is a medium strength. This is a full strength cigar.
Yeah, and so you had it too humid.
No,
I bet you did.
This is 60 again. This is 67 on my humidimeter.
I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. Dry that cigar out for a day or two in your air conditioning, and then re-smoke it. You won't have that problem.
I'm going to take you up on these recommendations, and I'm going to go do that.
Yeah, you're air conditioning your house right now, I assume. So
yeah, my lounge is at 77 degrees all day long.
That's pretty warm, but if you have like your bedroom, maybe put it out on your dresser and just
76 in my house.
Leave two of them out on your dresser for about a week and then smoke it.
I'll take you up on that. But the point, that's a good point. But then, of course, I have to counter that ever so slightly that if you were to pick these up in a shop like I did, and this is what I got, and I put them in my humidor, which is where I keep my cigars at a controlled environment, and I measure it to say, okay, it was at 67, which is where I like the cigars normally. Most people are going to do that, and they're going to smoke the cigar and have that problem. So it becomes interesting. You're making a very good point, which makes me think that when I review these cigars, and I might have to change some of my policy. If I review a cigar and I have that problem, I should take you up on that, dry it a little bit out, bring the humidity down, redo it, and then talk about that in the review. Hey, let me tell you what, this cigar at 67 burns like this. At 64, it burns like this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, the ambient environment isn't as important as the moisture content of the cigar. I mean, I think Saka posts this a lot about how he measures the moisture content of the filler, and it's super important. And again, it also goes back to variations. So if you take it out of a certain kind of environment and you move it to another kind of environment really fast, then even while you're smoking, it's going to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, look, I've never been a stickler for a perfect burn. I mean, this one I'm smoking is pretty good, I guess.
A little
But
wonky, but that's
to,
okay.
see, to me, that's not. I mean, like, I don't even look at that, right? It's like, you know, it's really more about the consistent production of the smoke. And what I don't like is when part of the cigar is not burning. If it's burning a little uneven or whatever, that's just the nature.
Right.
It's a
Right.
trade-off.
If the leaf isn't burning, if you look at that foot and that foot is now showing that
That's the
part
problem.
of that cigar is not burning, that's a problem.
Yeah. So I want a consistent volume of smoke, and the whole blend burning at the same time. For me, you know, I don't really concentrate on the burn very much. I mean, I very rarely will touch something up. More often than not, if it hits a spot, like if it hits a spot where it just seems like it's about to take a run, you know, I'll lick my finger and put it behind that a little bit just to kind of slow it down. But
So Cuban style. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. I mean, to me, you know, there's so many factors in it. At the end of the day, what it really boils down to is taste. You know, and
Sound like Willie Herrera now.
it's completely subjective. I mean, look, if you want a cigar that burns perfect, it's not going to have a whole lot of strength and flavor. If you want a cigar that has a ton of strength and flavor, it's not going to burn perfect every time unless you really understand the cigar and understand how to store it and prepare it to smoke.
Right.
Our cigars are, you know, they don't need to be aged, but they definitely aren't good to pick off the shelf and just immediately start smoking.
Yeah.
Just because of the humidity, right? You know, one of the things we do, and I've developed this process over a long time, is so our boxes. There was a time early on where we would kiln dry the wood for our boxes because our boxes are very heavy wood, and we would kiln dry the wood, and then what would happen is they would kiln dry them, and then they would move them to our factory, and in the 3 or 4 days they were in the factory, especially in the rainy season, they would start to absorb humidity and they would expand and the lids would get stuck. So we stopped kiln drying the boxes, and one of the benefits of it is that the box actually pulls humidity out of the cigar. So from the time you've got this, you know, 4-month dried out cigar, you move it over into the packaging environment. From the time it goes to the sorting table into the packaging environment, it dries out. It absorbs humidity, and especially in the wrapper, which is good because you can handle it without jacking up the wrapper. But then what happens is when it goes in the box will suck the humidity out of the outside cigars. So we used to put a humidipack on the bottom and we tried on the top. But what happens is the wood sucks the humidity out of the humidipack because it's being absorbed in the wood. So when you open a box of our cigars now, what you'll see is there's usually 6x4. And what will happen is you'll have 2 layers of cigars, and then you'll have a humidipack in the middle, and you have the 2 layers of cigars on top of that, then the lid. We actually stick the humidipacks, the 12-gram or 10-gram humidipacks, we actually put them in our drying room for about 2 hours or whatever the day, you know, 4 hours, 6 hours before we start the boxes for the day. And so they get, actually the humidipacks go from 10 or 12 grams down to like 6 to 7 grams. And then what happens is when we stick them in the middle of the cigars, they start absorbing the humidity back from the cigar. So our goal is through the shipping process that the cigars dry out more. And then what happens is if a box lands at the retailer and it's on the shelf right there and it's been pretty dry and warm, that cigar is perfectly fine to smoke right there. But if they put that cigar into a high humidity environment, like over 70, in an open box, what happens is the outside starts to get humidified again, and then the middle is still a little bit dry, so it'll burn a little bit faster on the outside, and you get that cone, right? So if you buy the cigar after it's been in the humidor a little while, if it's only been in there for a week or two, which is the case with a lot of our cigars, then you've got to normalize it before you smoke it. But if it comes straight off the truck and it's been traveling, it's perfectly good to smoke. It's the reverse of what a lot of people think, right? Because they think, if it's right off the truck, it's unstable.
Well, the only thing with right off the truck, here, right off the truck, they're hot.
Or they're frozen. Right?
Oh, they're frozen.
Right. Yeah.
Depends on where you live.
Right. But,
so the other thing we have so on the news, it was a light news week. We did talk about what was going on with the FDA. I did push out episode 19 out on the YouTube channel. So like I say, all these eventually get post-produced on the Stogie Press YouTube channel. So Robert Holt's show was on there. We talked about soccer and what he was doing as far as his moratorium on new retail accounts. And then I also pushed out the Noel Rojas episode out onto the YouTube channel. So that's really kind of light news week as far as everything. Not a lot of new releases that I saw anybody coming out with. Looking forward to what you've got coming. Skip, it's been amazing as always talking to you. You are a wealth of knowledge, and every time I talk to you, you give me one more little nugget to think about how to handle doing cigar reviews.
Weigh them.
Yes, weigh them. And I'm going to take you up on this. This is going to be something new, and I might be doing something new in the industry where I smoked a cigar, and if it's giving me problems, I'm going to say, well, I'm going to smoke the second one. I'm going to dry it out a little bit and see if it changes and talk about it. And then the consumers can get educated to that. And by the way, if that's the case, just if that really is the case, as you say, then I'm almost where the cigar manufacturer might want to say best smoked at this humidity level.
Yeah, for us, most of our cigars I think are best smoked between 62 and 65. But I mean, our Connecticut or our Cameroon might be an exception. But
yeah.
When you get those cigars and you put them in your humidor for a month or however long you keep them, weigh them before you put them in there. Write the weight on the cellophane, and then weigh them and get a really good scale, and then weigh them when you take them out to smoke them. And then if you end up drying a couple, weigh them after they dry. And then what you'll realize, first of all, if you weigh every cigar in the box, you'll know the variation of weights at the factory, right?
Right.
And for example, you'll start getting a standard weight for a 6x52 or a standard weight for a 5 3/4 by 46 or a 5x50. And what you'll realize is Dominican cigars are lighter than Honduran cigars and are lighter than Nicaraguan cigars. And it really depends on the textures of the filler, but it also depends on the density of the bunch. And you'll start to realize this factory for the same size is 3, 4, 5 grams, always less than the other. And, they're either dead on consistent, within a gram or two, or you have one at 14.5 and one at 18, right? And if that's the case, the 14.5, guarantee it has a soft spot. The 18, you might have a draw problem, right? So the weight tells you, the weight is an easier way to measure the tobacco content over time with humidity changes. And so you can start going a little deeper into understanding. You'll know before you even light it or before you even cut and draw on it whether you're going to have an issue or not. If you open a box of Cuban cigars, You'll see some at 13 and some at 20.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah, I don't smoke many Cubans.
Yeah.
If he gives me one, I always have to question if it's real the first thing, and then if I know it's reputable, it's like, okay, I've had tremendous inconsistencies with Cubans in the last.
If it tastes good, draws perfectly, burns perfectly, it's probably fake.
With that, Skip, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Stay safe down there.
Thank you.
We'll get back together on election day and have a conversation.
All right, brother.
See how things go. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, you'll be able to see all of these on the Stogie Press YouTube channel. I'll talk to Skip later this week, see if there's anything he's going to toss into a raffle. And we'll have a RoMa Craft Wheel of Wonderfulness on Saturday next week. Thanks, guys.